Thank you for tuning in. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, you'll probably remember Arya Stark reciting a list every night before she went to sleep. Well, I have a list also. Not that kind of list, but the list I have is the same one every expat I know has. And that is the list of foods you just have to eat whenever you go back to your home country. Today's recipe, Frikandel Speciaal, is very high on that list for me. Hi, I'm Tuan and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. Today's dish is the Dutch favorite snack. It is a caseless sausage that is deep fried and served with onions, some mayo, and some curry ketchup. It is absolutely delicious. Frikandellen have a very specific flavor, which is achieved with a spice mixture. My version of this spice mixture consists of 5 grams of onion powder, 5 grams of allspice, 2.5 grams of white pepper, 2.5 grams of freshly grated nutmeg, 3 grams of garlic powder, 2 grams of umami, this is smoky umami powder, and then 4 grams of kosher salt. I'm going to put all the spices in a bowl and then we're going to mix it really well, because one thing that I really don't like is when you don't mix this thoroughly, you can have one bite of frikandel that has a very strong garlic flavor, then some onion. So you really want to make sure that every bite has the melange of all these different spices. Since there's white pepper in here, try to not take deep whiffs of it because you'll get a sneezing fit. That's it. I'm going to set this aside and now we're going to continue with the other ingredients you'll need. The other ingredients you will need are 275 grams of ground chicken, 325 grams of ground beef. You need some beef stock. I'm just going to dissolve 1 or 2 bouillon cubes in some water. Liquid smoke, some instant coffee, I'll explain why we need that later. Of course, the spice mixture we made, and you'll also need some ice cubes. Next, I'm going to combine all the meat, the spices. You're going to add just a couple of dashes of liquid smoke. It is a very strong flavor, so if you put too much in it, even though you have this spice mixture, you're only going to taste the smoke. So just a couple of shakes. Going to put on some gloves, and we're now going to mix this together really thoroughly. So whenever I go home to visit family, probably within the first 2 days, I will be eating a Frikandel Speciaal. Either I go out and get it, or one of my family members takes me out and gets me a vette hap, you know, a greasy spoon. Some delicious, what I find comfort food, typically French fries with frietsaus or mayo and peanut sauce, and then a Frikandel Speciaal, what we're making today. This doesn't make a massive amount because I don't eat these very often. It is deep fried food and I don't like having a ton of these in the freezer, but they do freeze really well. So just make sure that you don't see any like big streaks of the spice mixture. Okay, actually not okay because there's still some spices in a single spot. So now I'm going to divide this meat into 2 equal portions before we move on to the next step. What we're going to do now is put half of the meat into a food processor. I have found making this recipe that my 25-year-old food processor really struggles if I put all the meat in at once. That is why I'm splitting it into 2 portions. So I'm going to turn on continuous the food processor. It's going to make a lot of noise, so I'm going to tell you what I'll be doing. And then once it kind of starts moving around as a ball, then I'm going to add 1 ice cube, wait for it to get completely crushed, and then I'll add the next ice cube. Now I'm going to scrape out the food processor bowl into a new bowl, and then we'll do the other half of the meat. The ice cubes bind the sausage. I'd never heard that before until I started researching how to make frikandel, and It really works. The texture completely changes, not just because of the food processor, but also because of the ice cubes. And now we're going to repeat these steps for the other half of the meat. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like and subscribe button. It will really help our channel. If you want YouTube to notify you whenever we post a new video, click the bell. I've put plastic wrap on my cutting board, 2 strips that are overlapping, and I'm going to fill my piping bag with the meat mixture, and then we're going to pipe a long log on here and use the plastic wrap to wrap it really tightly before we put it in the freezer. So I'm going to cut the tip off my bag. Actually, this might be a little bit too small. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to pipe a long log that is about 14 inches or 36 centimeters long, and we're going to tightly wrap that in the plastic wrap. Now, I don't do this very often, so I will try my best to make this even and without any air gaps or air holes in it. Actually, fairly proud of myself the way it's going right now. And now I'm going to put the saran wrap over it and make that as tight as I can and roll it towards me. We're going to twist the ends. It looks like there's a lot of excess, but that makes it just so much easier to put a knot in there. Not this side. Twist the other side. And this is going to go in the freezer for somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes until it has firmed up but isn't all the way frozen through. I have a pot of boiling water on the stove, and I'm going to dissolve the bouillon cubes and the instant coffee in that water. Okay, we're going to add the bouillon cubes. We're using 3 based on how much water I added and the instructions on these bouillon cubes, so follow the directions of whichever ones you're using. Or if you have beef stock in a package or you've made some, you can use that as well. However, you're not going to eat this after we've boiled the frikandellen in it, and that is because we're now adding some instant coffee to this. And why are we doing that? Because it will help give the frikandellen a little bit of color as we're boiling them. You're not going to want to eat this broth after you have dissolved the coffee. You can do it without, you'll just have slightly paler frikandellen. I'm sure this is one of the weirdest things you'll ever do, adding instant coffee to beef bouillon. I'm going to lower the heat a little bit to just let it simmer, and now we're going to cut our frikandellen at the right size. A frikandel is 18 centimeters, 7 inches, so I'm going to just kind of measure. I always end up cutting off the little bits that have the knot near them because you want it to have a straight edge, so cutting that off. So this one is 9 inches, too short to make 2, too long to make 1. So one of the things that sometimes you'll see at a cocktail hour is you'll have little mini frikandellen just on a toothpick that you can just dip in some sauce. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm just going to cut it into like 2-inch pieces like this. And we are going to remove the plastic wrap. All right. Cut the ends off. So 12 and a half. What is 12 and a half divided by 2? Okay, so we're going to cut that one in half there. Unwrap it. Last one. I've clearly wrapped these so well I can't even find the edge. Nope, that's not it. I found it. I'm now going to add the frikandellen to the water carefully so you don't splash. And you want to boil them for about 10 minutes. I'm going to put these other two back in the fridge because it just doesn't all fit in the pot right now. 10 minutes has passed, so we are going to take these out of the broth. They have plumped a little bit. They are also ever so slightly not straight anymore, but that's okay. If you want to, you can rewrap them and put them in the fridge to make them straight. I personally don't really care that much, so I will probably leave them the way they are right now. So these, I'm going to let them cool a little bit, cover the dish with some plastic wrap, and put them in the fridge to cool down. The frikandellen are done cooling off and setting up in the fridge. I have, you may hear it, I have a pot of oil on the stove heating up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius. And let's talk about frikandel speciaal. What is it? Well, of course, it is a frikandel that we're going to deep fry in a minute. And then when we serve it, it's going to have frietsaus or mayo, currygewürz ketchup. It is a spicy ketchup. It really doesn't taste like curry, at least not in my mind. It's just nice spicy ketchup, and then some finely diced onions. There's two different ways that people make a frikandel speciaal. The first one is you fry it and then you cut a slit in it and add the mayo, ketchup and onions, or you cut the slit before frying it, which will cause it to open, and that is my preferred way. Also then the area that you cut will get the crust on it. So I'm going to cut a slit in this frikandel. Don't go all the way through to the bottom, go about halfway deep, and then when we fry it, it will open up. Here we go, just careful. At a snack bar, you will often see a specialized tool for this, which basically fits around the frikandel and has a sharp blade in the middle, and it just cuts that slit in there right away. But we don't have one of those, we just do it by hand. And it's halfway through. So now, when the oil gets to temperature, it's almost there, we will fry it. The oil is at temperature, and I'm going to fry up only one frikandel. All the other ones are going to the freezer, and whenever I feel like having a frikandel, I'll just take one out and fry it up. In it goes. And the nice thing is, of course, the meat is all the way cooked already, so we are just looking for that color. It needs to be a deep dark brown color, and it will get a little bit of a crust on the outside. Should be just a few minutes. That color is perfect, so I'm going to turn the stove off and just drain this on a paper towel before we serve it. Here's the frikandel. We're going to start with a little bit of frietsaus, and I will put a link in the description of the video where you can buy this frietsaus. Some curry ketchup and just a few onions. It may not look nice and straight like you would get them in a snack bar, but it smells just like they do back home. So let's have a bite. Eet smakelijk. So good. If I close my eyes and I take a bite of this like I just did, I am right back in a snack bar eating one of these. We don't use the same meat combination, but the spices bring it right where I remember it to be. You have a little bit of the nutmeg you can taste, and then the sweetness of the frietsaus, a little bit of the spice of the curry ketchup, and a little bit of the bite of the onion. Such a great combination. Now, the only thing I'm missing is een patatje oorlog. Before I finish eating the frikandel, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click the like and subscribe button and share it with your friends. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. I'll post a written recipe on my website, twanskitchen.com, and you can follow me on social media as well. If you make a frikandel, please take a picture of it, post it on Instagram with the hashtag twanskitchen, and I'll feature it in my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.